Morning, everybody. This is Mark with Pacific Northwest Gardening, going over today on how to prune your indeterminate tomatoes, or at least how I do it. Full disclosure, I'm not a master gardener. I'm just a guy that loves my garden. And this is how I do it. This is a spoon tomato. So the tomatoes never get much bigger than a pea. But what we're going to do here applies to all indeterminate tomatoes that I've ever dealt with at any rate. So what we have here is just a slightly overgrown tomato, though I have pruned it up and got all the leaves up off the ground. Don't want leaves ever to make contact with the ground, because in my experience that's where everything goes south here in the Pacific Northwest, just due to the sheer amount of rain we get, especially in the spring. But in the end, what we want is about 20% of the foliage, and I only want 4 main beams off of this plant. And what we have here is 1 main beam, 2 main beams, the 3rd one, and around the corner here, the 4th one. I chose those early and I let them grow. Where these beams come from are from where it forks, right here. So this wants to create another beam to go up. But, as you can see here, my little frame with my 4 strings, I've only allotted for 4 of them. So, obviously, we want to get rid of all these. These are what would sprout up to become this as the plant extends up. So we want to get rid of all of these, and they come out of the fork. So you have your main leaf stems here, and then out of the crotch will come another beam. So we want to get rid of all of these fellows right here, but we want to leave this main one right here that will keep going up and up and up and up indeterminately until the weather says you will not grow any longer. So we'll just get in here, and so there's a flowering beam here. Obviously we don't want to get that guy, so sneak in real carefully. Boop. Just like that. Now our main keeps extending. We have what will become our tomatoes. So, like I said before, we just want our top 20% of this plant in foliage. So, we'll start down lower and kind of just clip our way up. So these bottom ones, as they age, they just get a little bit more shoddy. Bugs eat them, and they aren't very efficient anymore, and they become more of a drag on the plant than a help with photosynthesis. So we'll just keep kind of just trimming our way. There's a better way into that one. There we go. There's another one. Obviously taking care not to hurt these guys. So if we push this one aside, that beam going all the way down to the base, it's been cleaned up. We have only about 20% of the foliage at the top. And from here, all we have is these tomatoes popping out like that. So we got plenty of air movement through here, sunlight hitting the tomatoes themselves, and the pollinators, of course, can get to them. But what do we have on here? Beam coming out of that crotch. beam right here trying to sneak out of this guy. And same here. So those want to come out. However, they aren't quite long enough for me to get yet. So I'll just leave them be for a minute. But on this beam here, we do have that guy right there. See him? Coming out of that crotch. We want to get rid of that guy. He's big enough to clip now. Boop. And no, I'm not a master gardener. I'm not much of anything. Like I said, I just love gardening. And see this guy right here. Boop. There. Now we have 20% of foliage, whatever you want to say. There's all our tomatoes that are just going to be all over this thing. They can get pollinated. Once pollinated, good sun, good everything. Now, as these guys keep growing, I'll just keep with these clips I get from Amazon right there. I'll just keep kind of separating these guys and training them onto these strings to where eventually this plant will grow past the top of this guy, and it will just be these vines like this, just covered in tomatoes all the way up, and it's going to look so cool and nice and healthy. Now, why do you trim these? Like I said, never went to college, not a master gardener, not anything. But I do know, as you trim, it freaks the plant out, and it's like, holy cow, I need to reproduce, something is threatening me. And that causes it to throw out profuse amounts of starts, and it goes, hey, I need to grow so I can protect myself from whatever is hurting me down here. And just literally freaks it out into growing like a madman, and eventually you get crazy tomato plants. And this, of course, just applies to indeterminates. Determinates are a whole different deal because they only grow X tall and stop. So that's why I only run indeterminates. Once again, this is just how I do it and how I have found works great. And that may not work in your climate. I have no idea. This just works in the Pacific Northwest on the wet side of the Cascades in southern Washington. Well, thanks for hanging in. We'll talk to you later.